Commander Jake Miller stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the enemy fleet through the big screen. The alien ships were huge and dark, shaped like giant spears pointing at Earth. Red lights blinked along their sides like angry eyes. Jake had never seen anything so scary in his 20 years as a space officer. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They had blue skin and 4 arms, and they thought humans were weak. 6 months ago, their ships had appeared near Pluto, without warning. Their message was simple: surrender or die. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was young and nervous. Most had never been in a real fight before. The ship they flew was old, built 30 years ago with basic weapons and weak shields. It was nothing compared to the alien warships that could destroy planets. Captain Lisa Brooks spoke into her radio from Luna Base, the human colony on the moon. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. All ships fall back to Mars. We cannot win this fight. The alien commander was War Prince Vexstar, a tall blue creature with scars across his face. He sat on his command throne, watching the human ships retreat. To him, this was easy. His ships had faster engines, stronger weapons, and better shields. The humans were using old technology that his people had abandoned centuries ago. Admiral Ryan Clark gave the order from Earth Command. All units retreat to inner solar system. Prepare evacuation plans. The aliens picked up this message easily. Their computers broke human codes in seconds. Jake watched his fellow captains fight and die around Mars. Colonel Amy Davis led 12 ships against 50 alien vessels. She knew it was hopeless, but she fought anyway. Her ships fired simple railguns and basic missiles. The alien weapons tore through human shields like paper. One by one, human ships exploded in bright flashes. Jake saw the U.S. Freedom break apart when alien plasma beams hit its engine room. The U.S. Liberty lasted longer, but alien fighters swarmed it like angry bees. Captain Davis fought until the end, her ship ramming an alien cruiser before both vessels disappeared in a ball of fire. War Prince Vexstar watched the battle with growing confidence. These humans were brave but stupid. Their weapons were weak, their ships slow, and their tactics simple. His science officers reported that human technology was at least 300 years behind Zephyrian standards. The humans used fusion reactors for power, while Zephyrians had quantum cores. Human ships moved with chemical rockets, while alien vessels bent space itself. Human weapons threw metal bullets, while Zephyrian cannons fired pure energy that could melt mountains. Jake received his final orders. All remaining ships retreat to Earth orbit. Make your last stand there. He knew this was the end. His small fleet of 20 ships faced 300 alien warships. The math was simple and deadly. The battle for Earth lasted 6 hours. Human defense platforms around the planet fired desperately at the alien fleet. Space filled with explosions and debris. Jake watched good friends die as alien beams sliced through human ships like hot knives through butter. The USS Defiance, Jake's ship, shook as alien missiles hit its hull. Sparks flew from broken computers. The air smelled of smoke and fear. His weapons officer, Lieutenant Sam Torres, kept firing even as their guns overheated and failed. "Sir, shields are down to 10%, called out his engineer, a young woman named Kate Wilson. She was fresh out of academy, barely 22 years old. Jake wondered if she would live to see 20-3. War Prince Vexstar's flagship move through the human fleet like death itself. Its main cannon could destroy a human ship with one shot. Its armor was so thick that human weapons barely scratched it. The alien prince felt almost sorry for these weak creatures who dared to fight him. As Earth's last ships burned in space. Admiral Clark sent one final message. To all human colonies, Earth has fallen. You are on your own now. Remember us. Aliens captured this message too. War Prince Vexstar smiled with his sharp blue teeth. The conquest had taken only 3 days. His report to the Zephyrian High Command would be brief. Humans defeated, planet secured, resistance minimal. Jake's ship was one of the last to fall. As alien boarding parties cut through his hull, he looked at his crew. They were scared, but not broken. Something in their eyes told him this was not really the end. The Zephyrian Empire had won. Their blue flags flew over human cities. Their ships patrolled Earth's skies. War Prince Vexstar stood in what used to be the human capital, declaring victory to the galaxy dot, but deep in hidden bunkers, other humans watched and waited. General Paul Adams looked at screens showing the alien fleet. He turned to his staff officers and smiled. Phase 1 complete. The enemy has taken the bait. The aliens thought they had conquered Earth. They had no idea that everything they fought was just for show. The real war was about to begin, and humanity's true strength remained hidden in the dark between the stars. War Prince Vexstar wrote his victory report, listing human weaknesses and primitive technology. He recommended leaving only a small garrison to guard Earth while the main fleet moved to conquer other worlds. It was exactly what the humans wanted him to think. 3 months had passed since the aliens took over Earth. The blue-skinned Zephyrians walked through human cities like they owned them, which they did, or so they thought. Governor Ben Carter sat in his office in New York, reading reports that the aliens wanted him to sign. To everyone watching, he looked like a man who had given up. He signed papers that gave the Zephyrians control of human factories and farms. He smiled when alien officers visited him. But late at night, when no one was looking, Ben sent secret messages to hidden human groups. The aliens had made Ben the puppet ruler of North America. They thought he would be easy to control because he seemed weak and scared. They were wrong. Ben had been a spy before he became a politician. He knew how to lie with his face while his mind planned other things. Dr. Kate Wilson worked in a Zephyrian research center in Colorado. The aliens wanted to learn about human bodies and minds. They asked her hundreds of questions about how humans lived and thought. Kate answered every question with a smile, but she gave them false information, mixed with truth. She told the aliens that humans were naturally peaceful and would never fight back. She said human technology could never advance past what they had already seen. She even convinced them that humans needed a special chemical in their food to survive, when really it was just ordinary salt. While Kate lied to the aliens, she learned about their technology. She saw how their computers worked and how their weapons were built. Every night, she wrote down what she learned in a code that looked like shopping lists and love letters. Sam Torres led a small group of fighters in the ruins of Los Angeles. His team had only 12 people, but they made the aliens think there were hundreds of rebels everywhere. They blew up alien supply trucks and cut communication tables. They painted anti-alien messages on walls and rescued humans who were being sent to work camps. The Zephyrians saw these attacks as the acts of desperate people who could not accept defeat. War Prince Vexstar told his officers that this resistance was normal after conquest. All defeated peoples fight back at first, he said. Soon they will realize fighting is useless, and they will give up. Sam's group was careful to never use advanced weapons or show any real skill. They fought with simple guns and homemade bombs. When aliens chased them, they ran away quickly, but not too quickly. They wanted to seem dangerous enough to be worth hunting, but weak enough to not be. A real threat. In the mountains of Colorado, things were very different. Deep underground, General Paul Adams walked through halls filled with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Humans in clean uniforms worked at computers that could think faster than entire alien fleets. Weapons that could destroy stars. Sat in storage rooms waiting for orders. The general stopped at a window that looked out into a huge underground space. Hundreds of ships hung in the air, held up by gravity control systems. These ships were black and smooth, shaped like teardrops. They could fly faster than light without making any sound or energy signature that aliens could detect. "How many ships are ready?" The general asked his aide, Colonel Amy Davis. She had survived the battle at Mars by ejecting in an escape pod before her ship exploded. 2,000 in this facility alone, Amy replied. The other bases report similar numbers. Total fleet. Strength is now at 15,000 combat vessels. The general nodded. It had taken 50 years to build this hidden fleet. While the aliens thought humans were just learning to fly in space, human ships had been exploring distant galaxies. While Zephyrians used simple energy weapons, humans had learned to manipulate reality itself. Above ground, the aliens were getting comfortable. They had moved most of their fleet away from Earth, leaving only 30 ships to guard the entire solar system. War Prince Vextar kept his flagship in orbit around Earth, but most of his officers spent their time in human cities, enjoying the pleasures of conquest. The Zephyrian soldiers walked through human streets without fear. They ate in human restaurants and lived in the best human houses. They treated humans like pets, sometimes cruel, sometimes kind, but always superior. Captain John Hayes commanded one of the alien guard ships. He was not human. He was a Zephyrian officer who thought the conquest had been too easy. Something bothered him about how quickly the humans had given up. In his experience, intelligent species fought much longer and harder before surrendering. John shared his worries with War Prince Vextar, but the prince laughed. "You think too much, Captain. These humans are weak. Look at their technology. Look at how easily we defeated them. They know they cannot win, so they do not try." But John kept watching. He noticed things that others missed. Human factories were working at full capacity, but the aliens could not find where all the products were going. Human communication networks carried more traffic than seemed necessary for a defeated people. And sometimes, just sometimes, John's sensors picked up energy readings that made no sense. Dr. Maria Garcia worked at the Human Space Center in Florida. The aliens had put her in charge of Earth's remaining satellites and space stations. They wanted her to help them understand human space technology, which they found amusingly primitive. Maria showed them around facilities that looked exactly like what the aliens expected. Simple rocket engines, basic life support systems, and computers that were barely smarter than calculators. The aliens took pictures and wrote reports about how backward human space technology was. What the aliens did not see were the hidden levels. Deep below the Space Center, quantum computers hummed quietly, processing information from across the galaxy. Gravity generators powerful enough to move planets sat in rooms that officially did not exist. And in the deepest level, a machine that could open doorways to other dimensions waited for its activation code. The resistance on the surface continued its small attacks. They rescued a few humans here, destroyed a few alien supplies there. It was just enough to keep the aliens busy, but not enough to make them think humans were really dangerous. Alex Morgan ran one of these resistance cells in Chicago. He had been a police detective before the invasion, so he knew how to investigate and plan. His team of 8 people made the aliens think. There were 50 rebels in the city. Alex was careful to let the aliens win sometimes. His people would plan an attack, then accidentally get caught. They would fight just hard enough to seem real, then surrender when the aliens brought enough force. This convinced the aliens that humans were trying to resist, but were too weak to succeed. Meanwhile, in space, human observers watched everything. Invisible ships hung in the dark between planets, recording alien movements and communications. The aliens had no idea they were being studied like insects under a microscope. The trap was almost ready. Soon, the aliens would learn what humans could really do when they stopped pretending to be weak. War Prince Vexstar sat in his command chair, looking down at Earth through his ship's windows. He felt proud of his easy victory and looked forward to his next conquest. He had no idea that everything he thought he knew about humans was a carefully planned lie. The occupation continued, and the aliens grew more confident each day. They had no idea that they were not the hunters. They were the prey. Intelligence Officer Alex Morgan crept through the dark halls of the Zephyrian Command Center in Chicago. He had spent 2 weeks planning this mission, studying guard patterns and learning alien security codes. Tonight, he would find out what the aliens were really planning. Alex wore a stolen alien uniform that made him look like a 4-armed blue soldier. The disguise was not perfect, but in the dim light, it might work long enough. He carried forged identification papers and a small device that could hack alien computers. The command center was built inside what used to be a human government building. The aliens had filled it with their own technology, glowing screens, floating keyboards, and computers that thought with living crystal brains. Alex had studied these systems for months, learning how they worked. He found the main planning room, where alien officers made decisions about Earth's future. The room was empty except for one sleeping guard. Alex quietly connected his device to the central computer and began copying files. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The aliens were planning to leave Earth in just 2 weeks. They would take most of their ships to attack other human colonies. Only 30 ships would stay behind to guard the entire solar system. The aliens thought 30 ships were enough because they believed humans were beaten and broken. Their reports said human resistance was weak and would fade away soon. They saw no threat from the primitive technology they had captured. Alex copied everything and slipped away into the night. Within hours, his information reached General Adams in the hidden mountain base. "They are leaving," Alex reported over the secret communication network. "War Prince Vexstar thinks 30 ships can control our entire system." General Adams smiled as he read the alien plans. "Then it is time for Phase 2. Send the activation codes to all bases. Operation Trojan Horse begins now." Across the solar system, hidden human facilities came to life. On the asteroid series, mining equipment that looked simple and old suddenly revealed its true purpose. The asteroid opened like a flower, showing weapons that could crack planets. What the aliens thought was a simple mining operation was actually the largest gun ever built. Captain John Hayes stood on the bridge of his ship near Mars when his sensors began screening warnings. Energy readings were appearing everywhere, in the asteroid belt, on the moons of Jupiter, even in the empty space between planets. Impossible amounts of power were turning on all around him. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system." "But that cannot be right. The readings show technology far beyond what humans possess." John stared at his screens in growing horror. His ship's computer was telling him that thousands of advanced vessels were powering up all around him. Ships that his sensors had never detected before were suddenly visible everywhere. Dr. Maria Garcia sat in her underground facility in Florida, watching as the Soul Defense Network activated. For 50 years, humans had been building secret bases throughout the solar system. Every asteroid mining station, every research outpost, every communication relay had hidden weapons and defenses. Maria's fingers danced over controls that did not officially exist. Quantum computers the size of buildings hummed to life, connecting with similar machines on dozens of worlds. The network that emerged was smarter than any single alien mind faster than any fleet and more powerful than entire star systems. On Luna, the human moon base that looked destroyed and abandoned suddenly blazed with energy. The ruins were just camouflage hiding the most advanced starship construction facility in the galaxy. Hundreds of sleek black ships rose from hidden bays, moving without engines, flying faster than light without making any detectable energy signature. War Prince Vextar was enjoying dinner in his luxurious quarters when alarms began screaming throughout his flagship. He rushed to the bridge to find his officers staring at screens full of impossible readings. "Report," he demanded. "Sir," his science officer stammered, "our sensors show thousands of unknown vessels throughout the system. Their energy signatures are off our scales. This technology should not exist." Vextar looked at the tactical display and felt his confidence crumble. Red dots representing unknown ships surrounded every alien vessel. His fleet of 30 ships suddenly looked very small and very alone. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "We destroyed their fleet. We saw their primitive technology." Commander Steve Jackson piloted his ship out of a hidden base inside one of Saturn's moons. His vessel was a work of art, black hull that bent light around it, engines that moved through dimensions instead of space, and weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics in small areas. Steve had been waiting 3 months for this moment. His crew was not young and scared like the people who had died in the fake battle. These were veterans trained in technology that made alien science look like cave paintings. "All ships, this is command," came General Adams' voice over the radio. "You are authorized to reveal our true capabilities. Show them what humans can. Really do." Steve smiled and gave his orders. "Weapons target the alien command ship. Let us introduce ourselves properly." The first shot was not meant to destroy, just to demonstrate. Steve's ship fired a beam that passed through the aliens. Shields like they were not there. The beam touched the hull of Vextar's flagship and turned a small section of armor into harmless light. On the alien bridge, officers screamed in panic. Their shields had not even registered the attack. Their armor, which could stop planet killing. Weapons had simply ceased to exist where the beam touched it. "Impossible," Vextar breathed. "Our shields are the strongest in the galaxy." Dr. Kate Wilson sat in her laboratory, no longer pretending to be a helpful prisoner. She activated communication systems that connected directly to Vextar's ship. Her face appeared on every screen in the alien fleet. "War Prince Vextar," she said calmly. "This is Dr. Kate Wilson of the Human Defense Command. You may remember me as the weak scientist who answered your questions about human biology." Vextar stared at the screen. The woman looked the same, but her eyes were different. Where before he had seen fear and defeat, now he saw confidence and intelligence that made him feel small. "Every answer I gave you was a lie," Kate continued. "Every piece of technology you captured was obsolete junk we left out for you to find. Every battle you won was against volunteers flying ships we built, specifically to lose." The truth hit Vextar like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that everything you think you know about humans is wrong. We have been spacefaring for over 300 years. We have colonies in other galaxies. We have technology that your science cannot even understand." Kate's image smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "What you fought and defeated was our training fleet. Ships we used to teach children how to fly. The crew that died were brave volunteers who sacrificed themselves to make you believe we were weak." She leaned forward on the screen. "Would you like to meet our real military?" As if summoned by her words, the space around the alien fleet filled with human ships. They appeared without warning, without energy signatures, as if they had stepped out of another dimension. And perhaps they had. The ships were beautiful and terrible. They moved like living things, flowing through space instead of flying. Their hulls seemed to be made of liquid shadow that absorbed all light. When they turned, reality itself seemed to bend around them. War Prince Vextar counted the ships surrounding his fleet and felt his heart stop. Thousands. There were thousands of them, and each one radiated power that his instruments could not measure. "This is impossible," he said again, but the words sounded weak even to him. "For you, perhaps," Kate replied. "But humans learned long ago that impossible is just another word for something you have not figured out yet." The alien prince looked around his bridge at officers who were just beginning to understand how badly they had been fooled. They had thought they were wolves hunting sheep. Instead, they were mice who had wandered into a dragon's den. "What do you want?" Vextar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Kate's smile grew wider. "Now that is the right question. But before we discuss terms, you need to send a message to your empire. Tell them exactly what you have found here. Tell them that humanity is not what they thought." Vextar knew he had no choice. His fleet was surrounded, outgunned, and completely helpless. The humans had revealed their true strength, and it was beyond anything he had imagined possible. The war was not over. In fact, it had not even begun. Everything that had happened before was just humanity removing their mask. Now the aliens would learn what humans could really do when they stopped pretending to be weak. And in the dark between the stars, more human ships waited in numbers that would make alien admirals weep. Admiral Karen White stood in the command center of humanity's true flagship, watching as her fleet moved into position around the trapped alien ships. The vessel she commanded was the size of a small moon, but it moved through space like a gentle breeze. Its hull was made of materials that existed in 6 dimensions at once, making it nearly impossible to damage. "All ships report ready," announced Captain Chris Bell from his position at the tactical station. His job was to coordinate the capture of War Prince Vextar's flagship without destroying it. The humans wanted prisoners, not corpses. Karen nodded and opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "War Prince Vextar, this is Admiral Karen White of the Human Star Command. You have exactly 10 minutes to surrender your fleet before we demonstrate why that would be the smart choice." On his bridge, Vextar looked around at his officers. They were the best the Zephyrian Empire had to offer, trained warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds. Now they sat frozen in their chairs, staring at sensor readings that made no sense. "Sir?" His weapons officer said quietly, "Our computers cannot even identify what the human ships are made of. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto them. It is like they are not completely real." Vextar tried to think of options, but there were none. His 30 ships faced thousands of human vessels that used technology beyond his understanding. Even if he chose to fight, his weapons might not even be able to hurt the enemy. "Open a channel," he ordered. When the connection was established, he spoke with as much dignity as he could manage. "Admiral White, I am prepared to discuss terms." "There are no terms to discuss," Karen replied calmly. "You will surrender immediately and completely. Your ships will be boarded and your crews taken prisoner. You will cooperate fully or face the consequences." To demonstrate what those consequences might be, she gave a small hand signal to her weapons officer. One of the human ships fired a single shot at a small asteroid floating nearby. The asteroid did not explode or break apart. Instead, it simply stopped existing, as if it had never been there at all. The alien officers watched in horror as their instruments tried to make sense of what they had seen. The asteroid had not been destroyed. It had been erased from reality. Not even atoms remained where it had been. "How?" Vextar whispered. "We learned to manipulate the basic forces that hold reality together," Karen explained. "Matter, energy, space, time, they are all just different aspects of the same thing. Once you understand that, You can do whatever you want with them. Chris. Bell led the boarding party that took control of Vexstar's flagship. The humans moved through the alien ship like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. When alien soldiers tried to fight back, their weapons passed harmlessly through the attackers. "How are you doing that?" demanded the alien security chief, as human soldiers walked through solid walls to surround him. "Phase shifting," Chris explained casually. "We can move our bodies slightly out of normal space-time. Your weapons exist in only 3 dimensions, so they cannot touch us." Within minutes, the entire alien fleet was under human control. Not a single shot had been fired after the demonstration. The aliens had simply given up when they realized how hopeless their situation was. Engineer Tony Clark worked with a team of human scientists to examine the captured Zephyrian technology. They had been curious about alien engineering for months, wondering how it compared to human science. "It is actually quite clever," Tony reported to Admiral White. "Their technology is very advanced, just not in the same directions as ours. They focused on making things bigger and more powerful, while we learned to manipulate the fundamental nature of reality. The aliens used massive fusion reactors to power their ships. Humans had learned to draw energy directly from the quantum foam that filled empty space. Alien weapons fired beams of superheated plasma. Human weapons convinced matter to forget how to exist. Tony's team also found the Zephyrian faster than light communication system. It used quantum entanglement to send messages instantly across any distance. The humans had developed similar technology centuries ago, but the alien version was elegant and efficient. "Can we use their system to contact the Zephyrian Empire?" Admiral White asked. "Yes, but we can do better than that," Tony replied with a grin. "We can modify it to carry a complete tactical analysis of this battle. The aliens will see exactly how their fleet was defeated." Dr. Rachel Kim stood in her laboratory, preparing for the next phase of humanity's plan. She was a terraforming specialist, an expert in reshaping entire worlds. Her job was to send the Zephyrian Empire a message they would never forget. Rachel had chosen Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, as her canvas. The moon was covered in ice and had no atmosphere. In the space of 6 hours, she would turn it into a garden world, then change it back. The demonstration would show the aliens that humans could reshape planets as easily as rearranging furniture. She activated the terraforming array, a network of machines that could manipulate matter on a planetary scale. The process began with warming Europa's core using controlled gravity manipulation. The ice began to melt, forming oceans under a newly created atmosphere dot within 2 hours. Europa had breathable air and liquid water. Seeds launched from the array took root in soil that had not existed an hour earlier. Plants grew with impossible speed, covering the moon in forests and grasslands. The aliens watched in stunned silence as a dead world came to life before their eyes. Their own terraforming technology would take centuries to accomplish what the humans had done in an afternoon. "But this is impossible," Vexstar said, staring at the screens showing Europa's transformation. "You cannot create life from nothing." "We did not create life," Rachel explained over the communication channel. "We just convinced the moon that it wanted to be alive. Reality is much more flexible than your people believe." After 6 hours, Rachel reversed the process. The forests withered, the oceans froze, and the atmosphere dissipated back into space. Europa returned to being a dead, icy rock, but the message was clear. If humans could bring life to dead worlds, what else could they do? War Prince Vexstar found himself in a small but comfortable prison cell aboard the human flagship. Admiral White came to visit him personally, bringing food and medical supplies for his injuries. "I do not understand," Vexstar said as the Admiral sat across from him. "Why are you treating me well? I invaded your world. I killed your people. Those people volunteered to die, Karen replied. They knew the plan from the beginning. There. Sacrifice was necessary to make your empire believe we were weak. She leaned forward in her chair. You want to know how we developed such advanced technology? We have been preparing for this moment for 300 years. Ever since our first deep space probes detected your empire, we have been getting ready. Vexstar shook his head. But your technology was so primitive when we arrived. That was technology we built specifically for you to capture, Karen explained. We studied your science and engineered weapons and ships that would look impressive to you while actually being useless. Everything we showed you was a carefully designed fake. The alien prince began to understand the scope of humanity's deception. The entire war was a lie. Not a lie, Karen corrected. A test. We needed to know how your military thought, how your technology worked, and what your empire's weaknesses were. The only way to learn that was to let you think you had won. She stood up and walked to the window that looked out at the human fleet. Your people have been conquering other species for thousands of years. You always won because you were stronger and more advanced than everyone you fought. But you never fought anyone who was pretending to be weaker than they really were. Vexstar followed her gaze and saw the human ships moving in perfect formation around Jupiter. They flowed like a school of fish, each vessel perfectly coordinated with all the others. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. What happens now? He asked. Now you get to deliver a message to your empire, Karen said. You will tell them exactly what you found here. You will explain that humanity offers them two choices, peace or total destruction. She turned back to face him. We do not want to destroy your people, Vexstar. We would rather be friends. But your empire must understand that the age of easy conquest is over. You cannot bully species that are stronger than you are. The communication array that Tony had modified was ready. The message would reach the Zephyrian High Command instantly, carrying complete records of the battle and the terraforming demonstration. The alien leaders would see exactly what they were dealing with. Admiral White gave the order to transmit. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian commanders would soon learn that their supposedly invincible fleet had been defeated without the humans even trying very hard. The message included an invitation to peace talks, but also a warning. Human ships were already positioned near major Zephyrian worlds, not to attack, but to observe. The implication was clear. If the aliens wanted war, humanity was ready to bring it to them. As the transmission ended, Karen looked out at her fleet and smiled. The hard part was over. Now they would see if the Zephyrian Empire was wise enough to choose peace over destruction. In the distance, work had already begun on the first Interstellar Council headquarters. It would be a place where different species could meet and solve problems. The emergency meeting of the Zephyrian High Command took place in the great Crystal Hall on their homeworld of Zephys Prime. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat around a table made from a single piece of living diamond, their blue faces grave with worry. High Admiral Kexvar, the supreme military commander of the Empire, stood before a massive holographic display showing the tactical data from Earth. The images were clear and terrifying. Human ships that could phase through solid matter, weapons that erased things from existence, and technology that could reshape entire worlds in hours. The implications are clear, Kexvar said, his voice heavy with defeat. We have been outmaneuvered by a species we thought was primitive. Everything we knew about humans was a carefully constructed lie. Empress Veltara, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, studied the data with growing amazement. Her people had conquered 47 star systems over the past 1,000 years. They had never encountered a species that could match their technology, let alone surpass it by such a wide margin. How is this possible? She asked. Our intelligence reports showed that humans had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. That was what they wanted us to believe, replied Intelligence Director Nextol. According to the data from War Prince Vextar, humans have been spacefaring for over 3 centuries. They have colonies in other galaxies and technology that operates on principles we do not understand. The room fell silent as the leaders absorbed this information. The Zephyrian Empire had built its power on being the most advanced civilization in their region of space. Now they had discovered a species that made them look like children, playing with simple toys on Earth. Ambassador Ellen Price prepared for the most important negotiation in human history. She had been chosen to represent humanity because of her skill at diplomacy and her ability to remain calm under pressure. The meeting would take place on a neutral space station that humans had built in just 3 days. The station itself was a message. It was beautiful beyond description, made of materials that seemed to glow with inner light. Gardens filled with plants from dozens of worlds grew in chambers that defied gravity. Water flowed upward in spirals that formed complex patterns in. The Air. Ellen walked through the station's corridors, checking the preparations. Every detail had been planned to impress the Zephyrian delegation. The aliens needed to understand that humanity was not just technologically superior, they were also more advanced in art, science, and philosophy. General Paul Adams met with his staff in the deep command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with screens showing the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. What the Zephyrians did not know was that humanity had been seeding the galaxy with hidden bases for centuries. Status report. The general ordered. Colonel Amy Davis pointed to a 3-dimensional map that showed human military positions. We have observation fleets positioned near 12 major Zephyrian worlds. They are not hiding. We want the aliens to see them. Each fleet is small, only 50 ships, but the aliens know what our ships can do. The general nodded with satisfaction. And the other human colonies? All safe and accounted for. The Zephyrians never found our real colonies because they were looking in the wrong places. Our people have been living in other galaxies for 200 years. Amy touched a control, and the map expanded to show the entire local galaxy group. Red dots marked human settlements on thousands of worlds, connected by a network of faster-than-light gates that made travel instant across any distance. The aliens were conquering empty planets and thinking they were building an empire, Amy continued. They never realized that the real centers of human civilization were far beyond their reach. President Dan Rogers stood in the Oval Office, preparing to address both Earth and the Zephyrian Empire in a joint broadcast. The speech would be transmitted across the galaxy, reaching billions of beings who were about to learn that everything they thought they knew about humans was wrong. Dan looked at his notes one last time, then stepped in front of the cameras. Behind him stood flags representing not just Earth, but all of humanity's far-flung colonies and allies. People of Earth and beings of the Zephyrian Empire, he began, his voice calm and confident. Today marks the beginning of a new age in galactic history. For the first time, our two peoples are speaking to each other as equals. He paused, letting that word sink in. Equals. Not conquerors and conquered, but partners in the vast community of intelligent life. The Zephyrian Empire has spent 1,000 years believing they were the most advanced civilization in this region of space. That belief led them to conquer and dominate other species who could not defend themselves. Today, that age of easy conquest ends. On Zephy's prime, Empress Veltara watched the broadcast with her advisors. The human president looked ordinary, middle-aged, gray-haired, wearing a simple suit. But his words carried the weight of a civilization that could destroy star systems. Humanity has been hiding our true capabilities for 3 centuries, Dan continued. We have watched the Zephyrian Empire grow, studied their technology, and learned their weaknesses. We allowed them to believe we were primitive because we hoped they would eventually choose peace over conquest. The president's expression grew. Serious. That hope was disappointed when Zephyrian fleets attacked Earth. But even then, we did not reveal our full strength. We allowed them to think they had won, while we prepared to show them the truth about human civilization. War Prince. Vexstar watched the broadcast from his comfortable cell aboard the human flagship. Admiral White sat beside him, translating the president's words when the automatic systems failed to capture the nuances. Your president speaks of hope, Vexstar said quietly. Even after we attacked your world, you still hope for peace? We prefer peace, Admiral White replied. But we are very good at war when it becomes necessary. The choice is yours to make. On the screen, President Rogers was explaining humanity's true history. The first human starships had left Earth 300 years ago, using technology that the Zephyrians were still trying to understand. Human colonies had spread across multiple galaxies, building a civilization that dwarfed anything the aliens had imagined possible. We have been preparing for this moment for centuries, the president said. Every human child learns about the day when we would no longer be able to hide our true nature. That day has come. The broadcast shifted to show images of human cities on distant worlds. Massive structures that seemed to grow like living things, reaching toward alien suns. Ships the size of moons, carrying millions of people between the stars. Machines that could build planets from cosmic dust in a matter of days. Ambassador Ellen Price stood in the main conference room of the neutral station, waiting for the Zephyrian delegation to arrive. She wore a simple blue dress that made her look like any ordinary human diplomat. The room around her told a different story. The walls were transparent, showing the stars beyond. But these were not the stars visible from Earth. The station existed in a pocket of folded spacetime, allowing viewers to see multiple galaxies at once. It was a subtle demonstration of human mastery over the fundamental forces of reality. The Zephyrian shuttle docked with barely a whisper. Ellen watched as the alien delegation emerged. 12 beings in elaborate robes, their blue skin marked with the scars and tattoos that showed their rank. They moved carefully, their forearms constantly touching weapons that would be useless. Against human technology. Empress Veltara herself led the delegation. She was tall even for a Zephyrian, with silver markings that indicated her royal bloodline. Her eyes were ancient and intelligent, the eyes of someone who had ruled an empire for 2 centuries. Empress Veltara, Ellen said, bowing slightly. Welcome to Harmony Station. I am Ambassador Ellen Price, representing the United Human Republics. The Empress looked around the conference room, noting details that her technical advisors had missed. The chairs were made of a material that adapted itself to whoever sat in it. The table seemed to be carved from a single crystal, but scans showed it was actually composed of organized energy held in a stable pattern. This station, Veltara said slowly, it exists in folded space. Yes, Ellen replied. We built it in 3 days as a demonstration of our construction capabilities. When these negotiations are complete, we can move it anywhere in the galaxy instantly. The Empress sat down carefully, her advisors taking positions around her. Ambassador Price, let us speak plainly. Your species has made it clear that you could destroy our empire if you chose to. What do you want? Ellen smiled. We want what? We have always wanted peace, cooperation, and the chance to explore the universe together. The age of conquest is over, Empress. It is time for the age of partnership to begin. She activated a holographic display that showed the proposed Interstellar Council. We suggest a new organization where all intelligent species can meet as equals. No more conquest, no more slavery, no more forcing primitive worlds to submit to advanced civilizations. The Empress studied the proposal. And if we refuse? Then you will discover what human civilization looks like when it stops being patient, Ellen replied. Her voice was still pleasant, but the threat was unmistakable. Doctor. Tony Clark worked in his laboratory, putting the finishing touches on Humanit.